Consumption patterns in Seoul have become more visibly polarizing. On one end, eager shoppers are lining up before opening hours at high-end retail stores, while on the other end of the spectrum, it's all about heightened frugality. So what's happening here? We want to seek a more thorough analysis with an expert on consumer trends. We're joined this morning by Dr. Soojin Lee, one of the co-authors of Trend Korea and researcher at the Seoul National University's Consumer Behavior Lab. Good morning, Dr. Lee.
Hello.
Hello. It's been a few months. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been good, and thank you for inviting me. Uh, like a lot has changed since the last time I appeared on the show.
I
Or the
think so. It's harder for us to ignore, in some cases, polarizing headlines. So we wanted to inform our listeners on what exactly is happening in Seoul, South Korea. There seems to be these opposite trends among the MZ at large. One seems to stay in line with YOLO, so this splurge lifestyle to celebrate small luxuries. And then the other is more in line with fire and frugality, aiming to spend the least amount of money. So,
Yeah,
Dr. Lee, what has led to these polarizing trends?
it's a very good question. I think it's because of the sudden economic downturn. The record inflation has resulted in a polarization of consumption patterns. So I think it cannot be said that it is limited to one like MZ generation. Rather, its consumption polarization is confirmed across generations or nations. It is a global phenomenon these days. For example, it had divided like retail industry performances. In the first quarter of this year, US department stores and dollar stores performed well. On the other hand, the performance of hypermarkets declined. Like Macy's, the department stores mainly consumed by financially well-off people, reported sales of 5.34 billion, which is 14% surge from the same period of last year. Another department like Nordstrom also exceeded the market estimate this quarter. And the dollar shop where the most products distributed at very cheap prices, so-called the Daiso of states, also showed a similar trend. Like Dollar Tree, one of the dollar shops in the US, recorded a 43 increases in the net profit in the first quarter, and another store, Dollar General, did better than like market estimates as well. However, the Walmart and Target, the leading US hypermarkets, mainly for the middle classes, suffered earnings shocks in the first quarter of this year. Walmart's net profit for the first quarter was 2.05 billion. It is down 25% from the same period of last year. And Target net profit halved from the same period of last year. So to sum up, it can be said that there is a definitely polarization phenomenon in the sales of retail industry by economic downturn.
And Dr. Lee, I think you raised really good points about it not being an isolated event in South Korea, but many different parts of the world. But I do want to divide and conquer these two very different points. And first, starting with those who are more focused on saving money from meal planning to looking for last minute deals at convenience stores. There's a lot of tips readily available online for anyone who's interested. As an expert, have you ever noticed any extra creative tips to help others succeed in the so-called no spending challenge or the 무지출 challenge?
Yeah, I heard lots of them because I interview consumers a lot, so I have various types of 무지출 challenges. For instance, I heard that some consumer, after buying a 10 kilos of kimchi and save expenses by making a side dishes or soup using only kimchi for a while, or carrying homemade lunchbox at work as the mainly normal things they do these days. However, I want to say that the point of this Mujichu challenge is focused on the challenge itself. They tend to do it strategically with others rather than alone. They like saving alone can make us lazy, right? So people leave some record of our savings on some blog or share various know-hows on social media and support each others. In its all about trying to stay in the habit constantly without getting tired. So some funny things that I heard is that the products that help Mujichu Challenge are on the rise right these days. According to Gmarket, one of the e-commerce of Korea, sales of account books increased by 34% compared to the same period of last year. Moreover, did you heard of some of this? Sales of 생활비 calendar is one of the fun products these days. Also increased by 77% compared to the last year. This calendar is that a calendar that has a pockets in the daily numbers, like 1일, 2일, 3일, 4일, 5일, or like, and puts bills in it and used every day, like $10 or like 만 원. Like, it has a number. So you have to use 만 원 that day only.
Didn't we have a TV show in Korea?
Yeah, it had.
Right? It was garnered towards giving celebrities a 10,000 won budget, 만 원의 행복, and their objective was to spend just 10,000 won a given day. I think it's kind of funny that in this day and age where everything is electronic, that would enable me to take out cash, put it in pockets. It's pretty analog if you think about it. But I think you raise an amazing point about accountability. You're right. I mean, the reason why we pay a lot of money to go to gyms as opposed to just, I don't know, running outdoors is so that we have someone who can hold us accountable, and these challenges tend to do that so I don't get bored.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So there are, it turns out, even apps on your phones to help earn petty change. I thought this was funny and kind of inefficient. For example, a step counter app that gives you 100 Korean won, which is less than 10 cents per 10,000 steps. That's a long walk for very little money. From a pragmatic point of view, that sounds so inefficient. Why not go get a part-time job instead? So how do you explain the popularity of these kinds of apps?
It's very cute, right? But I don't think it's inefficient at all. It is a very important business model. A company can use it as an element that can participate in their service or products experience while doing these so-called app tech businesses. It has a lock-in effect that can be expected. This lock-in effect refers to a phenomenon in which a consumer does not transfer use to other products or services after using ones. In platform businesses, the lock-in effect is one of the major key points that determine the success or failure of the service. So this is also the reason why, like financial companies, like banks, or are expanding their businesses into financial platforms, are actively adopting these business models. Like cash points are given through missions or attendance checking or walking challenges, like you said, or reminiscences. And these points can be used for offline or online payments or insurances or fund investments and so on by linking with the financial apps. For example, I have one of the apps that I have to walk 5,000 steps alone. I have to collect, I can collect like 10 won that I use. I think it's very cute.
Listeners, even an expert finds beauty in this. I think that is our point. 10 won is less than 1 cent for those of you guys who are wondering. But I do think maybe it's not just about the money. From a business perspective, this makes sense. It's smart. From a consumer perspective, again, I go back to the accountability, maybe the entertainment, the novelty of it too. It excites me. I had an app for the longest time that helps me grow trees, virtual trees. So I'm not planting even the real deal. It's just in my phone. It's an animated tree. And if I complete a task, it gives me tree. And I don't really gain anything out of it. But it kept me engaged in my to-do list. So there you have it. Do you think there's a larger benefit to using social media to post on these so-called no spending challenges, accountability, documentation maybe?
Yeah, that's a very good point. From the point of consumers, they can have a sense of efficacy that they are doing productive activities in their spare time. Even if the amount is not large, it is good that you can feel satisfied with yourself or that you're saving money. Like, in fact, recently some interest in like app tech, which means like investment techniques using apps, is growing right now. As a result of survey that conducted by some employment portal in Korea, Include, among like 1,707 adult men and women answered that among them, 75% answered they are currently doing some app tech. And for asking the reasons for why we are doing the app techs, they cited that because they wanted to be productive even in spare time, or want to save even small amount, or they because could save living expenses with accumulated points, and like these reasons they pointed out.
So it's hard for us to ignore its popularity and relevance. I do want to get to the other end of today's conversation. We're also continuing to see trends like 100,000 Korean won mango shaved ice selling at local hotel cafes. For listeners abroad, it's a pretty big reoccurring summer trend. The primary consumer target seems to be the younger generation. I may be wrong, but I do wonder, why is there an obsession with these kinds of small luxuries?
I want to say that this mango shaved ice contains all the elements that MZ generation goes crazy. Like, first of all, this mango shaved ice is limited edition. Like, basically, it is only available from May to August, and you have to stand in a line for 2 hours or 3 hours to get it, which means there is a rarity. It is a well-known fact that discerners have high satisfaction when they consume or obtain scarce products or services. It stimulates human nature desire to be distinguished from others who doesn't get it once. And the opposite psychological factor also stimulates MZ generation, which is they are very sensitive to trends. They have to follow friends or pursue some hot items constantly. Therefore, there is a clear desire to be recognized as a hip person, posting on photos or feeds or social medias, because the fact that it has been there proves that he is a trendy person. And most of all, there is no hesitation about spending for a one-time expensive experiences while saving other expenses. It functions as a reward or gift from me who worked very hard on daily lives or like that, I think. For them, it's a rather rational consumption.
And Dr. D, the last time we talked about trend forecasts for this year, I think you did allude to the fact that the MZ is more inclined to spend a lot of money on experiences. You add exclusivity to the mix, and certainly there's even more novelty. Honestly, for me, it's not even about mango shaved ice. If there's a limited release on streaming sites, I take a double look because it feels exclusive and like my time is limited. And I am the furthest thing from hip you wouldn't believe. All right, so I do have to wonder about this, the business side of things, because high-end hotels, based on reports, have said they barely break even with the sales of these mango shaved ice. So why are they keeping it on the menu?
That's good questions. I think it's because it has been engraved as a signature by consumers. It has become a new category rather than a single brand. In other words, the perception that in summer you should go to the hotel and eat mango shaved ice has been established. That way, when choosing a hotel for someday, it becomes the factor that immediately comes to mind as alternative in the consumer's mind. Having an alternative that pops up in your head cannot be ignored because in itself is a result of a huge marketing strategy, even if the profitability is low.
So it's not always just about profitability. It's just a different marketing strategy. And for example, an extensive staycation at these high-end hotels would cost you significantly more. So this might be an easier way for consumers who have a smaller budget to associate something as fun as mango shaved ice to a tell. So that's why they put it on the menu. Mobile apps like Kakao have also upped their gift options, now including, I came across a luxury watch costing a humble sum of 40,000 US dollars. Do you think the accessibility of these kinds of high-end products make it easier for the young generation to buy high-end goods?
I will say that it can be seen that there have some influences, but I think it's not possible to guarantee 100% sales effect. As the need to purchase luxury goods online has grown among the MZ generation after COVID-19, luxury online platforms have gained very popularity. But the situation has changed again. There is also forecast that sales growth will slow as the era of the high inflation approaches. An official from the luxury platform industry said that the outlook for the second half of the year is not very bright, as the MZ generation, who emerged as a major consumer after COVID-19, are closing their wallets. So I think I don't think it's guaranteed 100% for the sake of that.
All right. So it wasn't maybe not even designed to be a long-lasting trend. We'll have to see if your forecast sticks. Thank you so much for an interesting conversation, as always. Have a safe weekend.
Yeah, you too.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.